Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I am refreshed here on post workout kind of thing. For those of you new to the channel, which I saw someone new, so Wisco Hawk DK. I don't know if you changed your name or you're somebody new because you have a cool badge next to you saying, I guess you're a big fan of mine. So welcome to what I call here the Chakkalo Report. That's my name, my last name, and where I go over the news before I start work. Nuance is not a dirty word, and not one side is always right. So I like to inform myself of the news. I have strong opinions, but they're not ideological, or they're not religiously ideological. Let's put it that way. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where I bloviate for the first 5 minutes, and then we got into some headlines. I will tell you. I will tell you the first off. Thank you for being with me this long. I just picked this up since January, I guess beginning of the year, and I just can't believe that I passed 800 subscribers. Thank you for being with me. Um, you guys, this community in particular is the only one that keeps me going as far as showing up every day. You just make it so much easier. So thank you for that. Chat, let me know if I'm coming through clear. That's something I want to make sure about. This shaking thing probably has to do with my standing desk, so apologies for that. I'll put my hands on my pockets here, and that's really it for me. That's really it for me. So I'm gonna get into the headlines now because there are so many things that I want to tap into, and I usually go about 20 or 30 minutes. So let's have at it. You guys knew I was gonna, or I should say this. I have a really big soft spot for anything having to do with um, Jewish or Israel related headlines. There was a stabbing in London a couple of days ago, and I just between that and attacks on synagogues that happened earlier last or late last year. I have to agree with the rabbi of London. Outwardly facing Jews, people who are noticeably Jewish, either by attire or I guess something else, it may not be safe for them in London. Over the past 6 months, or I would say in the UK, over the past 6 months, I mean, how much violence were Jews subject to in obviously Jewish places, being either a synagogue or just existing. There's a opinion piece here from the Free Press. Of course, Barry Weiss is the editor in chief there. It begins this way: this morning, a man holding a knife ran down the street of a Jewish part of North London, hunting for Jews. He stabbed two of them. The suspect was tased after he tried to stab the officers who stopped him. Police have declared it a terrorist incident. The two victims, thankfully, are in stable condition. Something that came into mind that he was tased. He wasn't shot. Go London police. I think that's an example of good law enforcement and maybe not a use or need for guns. But that's beside the point here. This is, of course, an opinion piece saying he was hunting for Jews. Of course, I mean, do you want to give him the benefit of the doubt here? Maybe. And say he was just looking to perform a terrorist act? I don't think that was the case. But here's something to think about. What changed in London or what changed in the UK to make Jews this unsafe? Are you going to tell me it's 10/7? Are you going to tell me it's the massive migration of immigrants or refugees from the Middle East that might have harbored this kind of malintent for Jews? Because here's an insight: my grandfather-in-law is from Manchester, and all he tells me is he's the Jewish community is declining, and not because of anything else but migration. Just Jews aren't seeing a future in Manchester. Some are moving to London, and some are just leaving the country. And I ask you this: why is that? More similarly, is that happening all over the West, the United States included? So that was a soft spot that I needed to address. So there was that. Righty. Of course, for the newcomers here, I am a loyal Michael Smirkana's listener and have been for the past 13 years, since I was 17 and got my license. He spent a segment yesterday covering the Supreme Court's ruling on the Louisiana redistricting matter. What happened was, in short, Louisiana narrowed down their districts so that there will be primarily one district represented for, let's say, their mainly black population, the rest being their mainly non-black population, thinking that the blacks will be a monolith and vote for Democrats. But then the non-blacks sued. That the first map was ruled unconstitutional. Second map, the non-blacks thought that they were underrepresented. They sued under the second version of the maps, saying that they weren't being represented. Those were again ruled unconstitutional. The Supreme Court ruled race cannot be a factor in drawing up electoral districts. You would think it is May 1st, May Day. Happy May Day, everybody. What do you do when the midterms are, I don't know, 6 months away at this point? Probably to the day. So the Louisiana governor suspended next month's primaries until lawmakers can approve a new map. So what do you do? Smirkanish suggested that this is a great case for AI. I would argue to the contrary. I'm somebody with pretty extensive knowledge about AI, and I use it not just every day, but probably every hour of every day. I have processes that go on in the background every minute of every day. I wouldn't trust an AI just because the data it is trained on can bias it. And to eliminate any doubt as to the objectivity of drawing these maps, like I've said, we have to just make a grid. Of course, the shape of this country is not conforming to a straight up grid. There will have to be some districts that need to mend, but it just should make sense. But I'm more than willing to, let's say, put into the thought experiment of what will you tell the AI? What will you train it on? How will you guide it to draw the maps? Will you say, hey, AI, I want to optimize for the most representation throughout my state with adequate representation between classes, with adequate representation between race, or maybe race is now unconstitutional. Maybe you can't say that. With adequate representation across gender, across class status, across you name it. Now, do you see where I'm going with this? And then the AI is going to have to call its sources of saying, it's going to have to call its sources of saying, okay, how do I draw this up and what distribution do I follow? There's a theory out there. Some people call it conspiracy, some people don't. As far as, well, what's going to happen is most of the article copy and the text that AIs are based on are primarily skewed to the left, just because in the past decade or decade and a half, wokeism and cancel culture overtook our entire society, probably our internet, and all that's been done is AI has reinforced that, just because there was a built-in advantage over the past decade or decade and a half, because more left-wing perspectives being written about than right. I don't know how much of that is data-based, but I would believe it if it's true. And then the AI would have to make a decision. Maybe multiple AIs have to run this redistricting map, but I still don't think the AI is the way to go for all of these reasons. Like I said, I mean, perhaps I'm just too into the AI game to give this analysis, but I think this works to our advantage, and just to show that AI is not the answer. Just objective grids are the answer. Um, okay, I did want to also face the Maine Senate race. The governor, Janet Mills, so the way CNN is reporting it, Janet Mills was boxed out of the Senate race by Graham Platner's rise. Uh, the fact that she was boxed out, do we agree with that? Because right now, Susan Collins, you ask me, I think she's a hero in the Senate. Independent minded, an unreliable Republican, doesn't need to vote party line. Even John McCain, somebody who I also respected for being a reasonable guy, loved how Susan Collins ran herself ideologically. I'm very much of the ilk by Collins, Murkowski, Manchin, um, I guess Fetterman. I'm not really a fan of how he got elected, but the way he's been governing, I'm very much in favor of. The Yeah, I guess I also like Christie and Romney and Coons. You know, the normal people. I'm sure all of you guys like them too. Not to mention, Janet Mills was 78. I don't know what that would have done to the average age of the Senate, but it's not like she would have been out of place there. Just it was an observation that I made as opposed to Plattner's 41 years old of age. Um, but I would think just Collins's first of all tenure and her reputation for being such a middle of the road person. I guess why wouldn't I guess Mainers they're called? Why wouldn't Mainers recognize that and embrace that and continue to support the senator that's represented them? I think since like '06 or something. Uh, and this is of course this headline will dominate the headlines. The New York Times has this headline or subheadline of Trump versus the tattoo. The race will test political baggage. There's no question that Miss Collins has a challenging race on her hands. She's running for re-election in a state that supported Kamala Harris over Trump by about 7 percentage points in 2024. Since Trump's victory that fall, Democratic voters have grown more energized to defeat Republicans at every level of government. Like I said, Collins is an incumbent who's repeatedly won tough races, and Republicans believe they have an unusually flawed opponent, Mr. Platner. He has a long record of making incendiary remarks online, many of which he's apologized for, and a chest tattoo that resembled a Nazi symbol before he had covered it up last fall. He said that he hadn't realized its meaning. That's where we are on the Maine Senate race. I mean, you ask me, it's better than having Fetterman and Oz in the Pennsylvania race. I think both of which were just not up for the task. But in this point, you have at least one competent senator who's willing to represent the plurality of Americans. I would even say the plurality of Mainers. For those of you from Maine or somebody who's correcting me, I just apologize if it's not really a Mainer. That's Ham White. Thank you for your recommendation. Here's the mic is a little closer now. I hope that helps. Test 1 2. Yeah, I guess that's helping. Yeah, just let me know. Just let me know if that helped, being that the mic is closer to my mouth. Alrighty. Yes, but as Desert Sunset is saying, Collins is still concerned. She should be. She should be. Just like I read from the Times. This her state went for Harris in the 2024 race. And then since then, of course, the Dems are going to be energized in that state. But will they be energized for a candidate like that? I thought their governor would have been the better choice, but the cards weren't in her favor. Also, I saw you guys. So it's funny. I was driving here from the gym, and I saw you guys talking about the executive order that Trump signed. These headlines are from 20 anywhere from 20 to 12 hours ago. Trump signs executive order expanding access to retirement accounts. I didn't know this part, and I like to think of myself as obviously up to date on politics, up to date on the news, and a business owner. So I should have known something like this. The long and short of it, President Trump issued an executive order Thursday expanding access to retirement accounts for those who don't get 401ks. So about 54 million Americans lack access to an employer-based retirement plan, and a law passed under Biden set up a small amount of matching funds for low-earning workers who put money into a retirement plan. The Savers Match was set to take effect next year and would give up to $1,000 in matching funds to certain workers who contribute $2,000 a year to an IRA. I didn't do deep research into this, but I believe for anybody making less than $35,000 a year, the government might kick in $1,000 if the employee kicks in $2,000. I think it's a good idea. Honestly, for those making $35,000 or less, I don't know how they would contribute $2,000. I wonder if it's a traditional or a Roth approach. But what I don't think works is the auto opt-in to IRAs that a lot of states are passing, and there's a lot of federal groundwork laid out for. I believe it's the Secure Choice Act 2.0. During the what was the big COVID bill called? I forgot the name. The CARES Act. I think that was integrated into that somehow. And New York State is implementing it, I believe, and New Jersey, I think, did it. New York City did it for a while. Um, I believe Connecticut and Mass did it as well. It's just an added burden for employers, and given that employees can go ahead and open an IRA on their own, why saddle the burden with employers? And if you're not gonna charge the employers for doing it, I mean, it's a minor headache for me, I guess, to afford my employees the opportunity to put money away in an IRA. But I don't want to educate them on, hey, your pay stub is going to get garnished now. You have to opt out. And New York has some pretty sophisticated legislation saying the employer cannot intervene almost at all, or else I'm liable for damages effectively. So that doesn't really do much for me. Um, yes, financial literacy is a necessity, but mandating employers to do it, I'm a little uncomfortable with. Now, mandating employers to do it while employers pay for it, not willing to do that. But mandating employers do it, just opt them in. I'm pretty fine with that. I recognize not a lot of people are educated in that regard, and maybe this is the state making up for their shortfall. So let's see. Let's see. But of course, the order directs the Treasury Departments to set up a web portal called TrumpIRA.gov. Just like it's a Trump account, not this, but just like it was labeled a Trump account, this is named a Trump IRA. Or the domain is TrumpIRA.gov. And Wall Street loves it. That just means more money is coming their way effectively from the government, as well as, I guess, opening up to employees. This just makes Wall Street happier. And I think that's a good thing, because Wall Street means the American economy. It does not mean Americans. Maybe it means a certain subset or a class of Americans. And okay. Iran leader Mojtaba Khamenei. Iran's supreme leader vows to protect nuclear and missile capabilities. Now let's see if this is his version of posturing. And the entire I guess the entire exercise is, does when, if at all, will Iran capitulate to the fact that they're being blockaded? I don't know how much it's stinging them. I don't know how much more. I don't know how much it's being harmed, and how much longer they have left. How much longer the world economy has left from blockading the Strait of Hormuz. Um, I guess I'm just going to leave it at that. Because I want to say one more thing, in that I wonder how the chain of command is, because most of them were killed. And the only way they can communicate with an ailing, reportedly supreme leader, is by courier, through multiple channels, just because they think that they're compromised immensely to Western or Israeli or American surveillance and action. It's important to note today is the day of expiration of the president's unilateral authority to launch armed forces in response to an imminent attack. Hegseth is reporting that they paused the war to seek congressional approval, and I'm pretty sure they can get it by strong arming Congress the way they did FISA. FISA just got renewed. I know it made it to Trump's desk. I don't know if he signed it yet, but there's an extension of FISA. There's the reopening of DHS. Thankfully, that happened. You guys know how much flying I've done over the past month or two. And I made sure to give a thank you to every TSA agent I saw. And last point on the Iran war. Iran's war true cost is closer to 50 billion, not 25 billion, U.S. officials say. That's coming from CBS. Last but not least, the gerrymandering battle continues. I have to make a correction. I think I last reported, I think I saw a headline. I did see a headline saying that Florida was winding down their efforts to redistrict and optimize seats to be more Republican. But ever since I said that on the stream, I've only seen headlines saying they're ramping up efforts to be more Republican. So there's Florida. Trump reported that Tennessee is next. Louisiana is the mess that we already went over earlier in the stream. And I've been reading headlines saying if this battle gets carried out to the end, Republicans will gain 14 seats. If every red state, or primarily red state, redistricts and gerrymanders the hell out of the Dems will lose. And I believe it because there are more Republican states than Democrat states. Again, and then you know who loses out? Not the Dems. Most Americans on the left and in the middle. That's who I think loses out. And that is not the republic that we should be governed by. It's not. I guess as my Hail Mary, I would say I hope the Supreme Court intervenes one day and says, we're doing a grid. Everything else is unconstitutional. Go figure it out. You know? I don't know. Could the Supreme Court come back and say it just has to be an objective grid and the states no longer have the authority to draw maps? I don't know. Man can be hopeful, right? For the center to finally do it. All right. Comments time, everybody. We got about 6 minutes left. Let's see it. All righty. Let me just switch to all messages here. Harvey Skolnick, the extremists in Congress rule the gutless, and the gutless fail to represent the majority of their constituents. You know, Harvey, I was thinking about the power of a 50-50 Senate. I loved when Manchin had basically complete reign of the Senate. Normal guy, right? He had voter ID that was normal. I think it was HR 1. He had a good position on voting reforms. Center, middle of the road. Didn't agree with everything, but by God, I mean, normal guy. Normal guy you can have disagreements with, not just whatever Trump says is right or whatever he says you have to go anti just because Trump said it. Ridiculous. But yeah, I share your sentiment, and I like to think we tap into constituents here on the channel. By the way, guys, please thumbs up if you can. Subscribe if you did not yet. Yeah, here we are, right? Pluralism in thought, diversity, and opinions. Sean Nichols, for those curious about what happens after death, here is the answer. Remember what it's like before you were born. Same thing. Sean, I can always rely on your humor every morning. Thank you. Ham White, Mills is a distant outlaw in-law relative. Husband is the son of my grandmother's younger sister. Wow. Okay, that's a lot of mental gymnastics, Ham. I'm gonna have to figure that out after the stream. Can't really do it on the fly here. Let's see what else is going on. Nancy Lawrence Collins is a moderate and has voted with the D's and the R's. Yes, she has. And you know what comes to mind when you say that? The vote she got right. Were plenty of votes, but you know the vote she got right was the vote for now Justice Kavanaugh. That's the vote she got right. She listened to both sides. That assault on Brett Kavanaugh was ridiculous and unwarranted. And I still remember the way she came out in a cohesive and nuanced and well thought out way. Good for her. Good for her. Good for the nation. And I'm happy that confirmation made it through. Not that I think Kavanaugh is particularly more qualified than the next judge, but the fiasco the Democrats decided to play was inexcusable. And I'm happy that she voted the way she did. It's something in my young 20s that I remember, and it's a good moment for centrist and nuanced thinkers like ourselves, I like to think. Let's keep going here. Macaroni, I can't stomach any more things named Trump, whatever. I can see the Google search now, 20 pages long. Yeah. I will say it's the expert marketing of Donald Trump. He knows business. Like it or not, he knows business, and he's achieved plenty. Guys, thank you for the thumbs up. I just saw it went up 50%. Thank you. He knows plenty, from naming it the Trump account, from naming it the big beautiful bill, from naming it the Trump IRA.gov or whatever the hell it was. Good. He's a marketer. He's a marketer, and it'll remain that way. And he wants to, I guess, imprint his legacy on this. And he knows that no one will tell him otherwise. Desert Sunset. Trump has banners with him all over DC, looking like Pyongyang. Not a fan of the posters all over the place. The passports is a little much for me, but hey, usually I guess portraits of our president are hung up on a bunch of government buildings. Like I know every TSA checkpoint typically has a picture of the president, maybe the Secretary of Homeland Security. No objection there. No objection to presidents on, let's say, our currency passports. But the fact that he wants his face all over the place, maybe it takes it to another level. Doesn't really bother me. But the worshiping of him, and let's say Blanche's seeking approval of him, and Bondi putting his face and banner all over the Justice Department, gives me bad vibes, coming that, from a family of immigrants where dictatorships were just the ways of our past. I think Trump, I don't think he's a dictator, but it rubs me the wrong way, being distasteful really to what this democracy or republic is supposed to be. See above my spiel on the gerrymandering that's going on in this country, which is completely disgusting. What else? Oh, you said Pyongyang. I saw a crazy headline that what's his name? Why am I forgetting his name? The North Korean guy. I can't believe it. I'm blanking on that supreme leader's name. There was a North Korean soldier who there's a viral video going around. He put a grenade under his neck and detonated it while fighting for Russia. And this dictator's name that I cannot remember for some reason right now, given how into the news I am. honored his fallen soldier for the Russian cause. That story rubbed me really bad. I'm like, holy moly! And it was said that that soldier's last words were about the supreme leader. I mean, the mind games that go on in North Korea. Sheesh. Uh, Ham White is mentioning the news reports that General Dan Kane, CJCS, is opposing Hegseth's interpretation of the 60-day rule. Interesting. Well, uh, see John Hughes' segment on Smirkanish yesterday saying no president has honored the 60-day rule. And I've mentioned this before, so I love when I told you so can actually matter here. Um, Obama didn't honor it. Clinton didn't honor it. I know particularly in Kosovo. I don't know if it applied to Bush, and I think Professor, you mentioned Ford, but it's never been honored before. I would not be surprised if once the Dems take over the House, they'll impeach Trump on this or something. Again, not looking forward to it, but I would not be surprised. Suen, okay, but what if but what of Kavanaugh's alleged victim? His spittle-riddled defense seemed performative and appalling to me during the hearings. Suen, in the end of the day, and of course, as an attorney, you have to know we cannot strike people based on he said, she said. There was no substantive evidence. The victim deserved to be heard out. She was. He deserved to testify after the victim. He did. But there was no doubt, given how Gorsuch tipped the balance of the court. I'm doing this by memory, but I'm 78% sure I'm right. And then Kavanaugh would have been one vote over majority, and the Dems decided to. So, like, between what happened with that, and I wasn't around for this, but I've studied a little bit about it. What happened with Justice Thomas? I mean, there's nothing wrong if it happened, if it was a legitimate case. But why did the Dems muster up both nominations in the same way? Over, I mean, I guess it had to do with the balance of the court. Again, nothing wrong with the victim coming forward, but it was a he said, she said, and the Dems already pulled that move. That's my 2 cents about that. I didn't think I'd go back to the whole Kavanaugh hearing. Yes, Kim Jong Un. Thank you, audience. Sean Nichols. It seems like Israel can strike. He said, she said, or more accurately, Israel said. Perhaps. Harvey Skolnick, Reed Kavanaugh, at the very least, another candidate should have been selected. No, that's capitulating to the bullying of the Democrats. Nothing, and now it's all coming back to me. Nothing against Dr. Blasey Ford. Nothing. If she had a story, she had a right to say it. And she had a right to be heard at her hearings. But you don't capitulate to the bullying that the Dems mustered up. That's my 2 cents there. Desert Sense that the patriarchy protects its own. Maybe that had to do with it. But maybe there were some few people who are patriarchal, and I say that in the way that it's being used slangily, that wanted Kavanaugh to represent the men and the manlyhood, but I don't think that was the majority of them. Falcon Steph, sadly, he said, she said often equals he's right. Falcon Steph, I disagree with you. Take somebody like me who grew up in the peak of wokeism. She said usually is right. That's me living in my age. He's right probably was historically accurate. She's right was maybe more accurate in my day and age. Last one. I'm sure I really hit a chord with you guys here. Suen, you agree with Tammy Moran, especially when Thomas said he didn't listen to Hill's, I guess that's Hill's testimony. I was listening during Thomas's hearings. The public chair on the Coke couldn't be located. Ridiculous all around. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Biden was the chair of that hearing. I believe so. Um, okay. Sean Nichols, again, thank you for your humor. 2 cents, but the penny is no longer being manufactured. Does that mean we now have to discuss giving our 5 cents? I love you guys. So I will see. I hope to shoot a video for Sunday. Um, keep track of my channel. I am okay. Speaking of AI, I'm trying to figure out a way where I can use AI to make my content creation more efficient in terms of email and video production. So let's see how that works in terms of my newsletter and email notification and communication with you guys. Perhaps I'll be able to automate a way to send you guys links every night before a stream, which to click here to see my stream tomorrow. Uh, it is significantly past the half-hour mark. So thank you guys, and I hope to see you Sunday or Monday. Put it that way. Have a great weekend, everybody.